Is Israel an apartheid state? More and more these days, one hears this charge made. Oddly, when South Africa was an apartheid state, no one accused Israel of being one. The reason the charge was never made then, and shouldn't be made now, is the same. There's no truth to it. To those who know something about Israel or have just visited there once, the accusation is absurd, if not obscene. Indeed, it's a libel. But many people don't know very much about Israel, so let's respond to this accusation. First, what exactly is an apartheid state? And does Israel, or any one other country, fit that definition? Let's look at South Africa, the country that came up with this term. In South Africa, from 1948 to 1994, there was an official policy that declared blacks second-class citizens in every aspect of life. Blacks couldn't vote, couldn't hold political office, were forced to reside in certain locations, couldn't marry whites, couldn't even use the same public restrooms as whites. Not one of those restrictions applies to the many Arabs living in Israel. 1.5 million Arabs live in Israel. They constitute about 20% of that country's population. Every single one of them has the same exact rights as all other Israeli citizens, and they always have. They can vote, and they do. They can serve in the Israeli parliament, and they do. They can own property, businesses, and work in professions alongside other Israelis, and they do. They can be judges, and they are. Here's one powerful example. It was an Arab judge, who sentenced the former president of Israel to jail on a rape charge. And nobody batted an eyelash that an Arab judge would sentence a Jewish president to prison. Some other examples. Rita Mansour is the youngest ambassador in Israel's history. Walid Badir is an international soccer star on Israel's national team. Ismail Khaldi was the deputy consul of Israel in San Francisco. Khaled Abu Tomei is a major journalist with the Jerusalem Post. Galeb Majadel was until recently a minister in the Israeli government. They are all Israeli Arabs, not one is a Jew. And how many people outside of Israel know that all the road signs in Israel, for example, are in English, Hebrew, and Arabic? Not only is Israel not an apartheid state, Arabs in Israel are freer than any Arabs in the Arab world. No Arab in any Arab country has the civil rights and personal liberty that Arabs in Israel have. That's because Israel is a pluralistic, liberal democracy, the only one in that part of the world. Now you might say, well, okay, Palestinians who live inside Israel have all these rights, but what about the Palestinians who live in what are commonly known as the occupied territories? Aren't they treated differently? Well, of course they are. Because they're not citizens of Israel. They are governed by either the Palestinian Authority or Hamas. The only control Israel has over these people's lives takes place when they want to enter Israel. Then they are subjected to long lines and strict searches because Israel has to weed out potential terrorists. And what about the security wall that divides Israel and the West Bank? Is that an example of apartheid? That's rather easy to respond to. Is the security fence being built between the United States and Mexico an example of apartheid? Of course not. Israel built its security wall solely in order to keep terrorists from entering Israel and murdering its citizens. And you know what? It's worked. The wall, most of which, by the way, is an electronic fence, went up in 2002 during a time when Palestinian suicide bombers were regularly murdering Israeli civilians in buses, on streets, and in restaurants. And the moment the barrier went up, terrorism went down almost to zero. So then, why is Israel called an apartheid state? Because by comparing the freest, most equitable country in the Middle East to the former South Africa, those who hate Israel hope they can persuade uninformed people that Israel doesn't deserve to exist, just as apartheid South Africa didn't deserve to exist. And if you don't believe me, just ask the people who know better than anyone else what a lie it is that Israel is an apartheid state, the one out of every 5 Israelis who is an Arab, which is why they prefer to live in the Jewish state than in any Arab state. I'm Dennis Prager.
The Middle East stands at a fateful crossroads, for an epic battle is now underway between tyranny and freedom. And like all of you, I pray that the peoples of the region choose the path less traveled, the path of liberty. Israel has always embraced this path. In a region where women are stoned, gays are hanged, Christians are persecuted, Israel stands out. It is different. We have a free press, independent courts, an open economy. Courageous Arab protesters are now struggling to secure these very same rights for their peoples, for their societies. We're proud in Israel that over 1 million Arab citizens of Israel have been enjoying these rights for decades. Of the 300 million Arabs in the Middle East and North Africa, only Israel's Arab citizens enjoy real democratic rights. I want you to stop for a second and think about that. Of those 300 million Arabs, less than 0.5% are truly free, and they're all citizens of Israel. This startling fact reveals a basic truth. Israel is not what is wrong about the Middle East. Israel is what is right about the Middle East.
What do you say when, as a volunteer for Stand With Us, people say to you, is Israel an apartheid society, as an apartheid country?
Well, it's first of all, everybody that tells that Israel is apartheid, it's one of two cases: or he is telling lie, or he really doesn't know what is apartheid, or he never were in Israel and visited Israel. I suggest to those people to come to Israel or to listen to people like me to know more about the reality in Israel. We are diverse. We are a very plural community, and we have a lot of societies that live together. So it's not true.
Okay, and whatever personal ambitions you have, professional ambitions I'm talking about, do you feel that whether it be a Supreme Court justice or a member of Knesset, do you feel that there would be any obstructions?
First of all, I'm happy that I have the right to choose if I will be or not. I don't think that in Arab countries they really have this right. So maybe in the future.
Okay, well, we wish you the best of luck, Rania Nadel, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Israelis and Palestinians have been longtime enemies, but for mothers who are desperate to save their sick children, the conflict takes a back seat. An Israeli clinic is saving thousands of lives of youngsters from many neighboring countries, even those Israel has tense relationships with. RT's Paula Sleer reports.
Every hour is touch and go for 14-month Abdullah, whose little heart was born with a hole in it.
Without the operation in this hospital, my son would have died.
And in the next ward, 14-year-old Roniel, who was almost dead when she was wheeled in. One of 5 Iraqi children flown from Baghdad to Amman and then driven across the border to Jerusalem.
She was almost dead. She was so sick that she could not walk. She barely talked. She was very blue.
These parents faced the most difficult decision of their lives: bring their children to Israel, a country at war with theirs, and risk punishment and even death back home, or prepare for the alternative, possibly losing their child.
Initially it was very difficult for them because Israel was the enemy country. The parents were very anxious. They didn't know what to expect.
I was very scared to come to Israel, very frightened.
And she had good reason to be. Her country, Iraq, forbids its citizens from traveling to Israel.
They just fly them. There might be a layover in another country. Like I know, for instance, from Africa, they come in through Ethiopia because it's the only place in Africa that flies to Israel.
But for the Israeli doctors that treat these Arab children, the decision is simple.
I'm doing what I think is right to do. I'm treating kids that need treatment.
In the last 15 years, more than 2,500 children have been brought here, sponsored and treated. Half of them come from Gaza. The rest come from Iraq, Indonesia and across Africa.
The main goal of this organization is to help developing countries create the medical ability to treat children with heart problems by themselves. In order to achieve that, we bring children from these developing countries to Israel. We also bring doctors from these developing countries for training here in Israel.
And it's a vision that's paying off. Not only is Saidi eternally grateful to the Israeli doctors that saved her daughter's life, she's now brave enough to tell her neighbors back home.
I will tell everyone we were in Israel and how they saved my daughter's life. I'm no longer afraid to say it because my daughter is alive.
And so, while the politicians continue to have a go at each other, and Israel and her Arab neighbors grow further apart, on the ground, at least in this spot, a very different story is unfolding. Paul Islia, RT, Holon.
My name is Jumana Imad Musa Ahmed al-Bahri, and I'm a student here at UCSD.
You condemn Hamas.
Would I condemn Hamas?
As a terrorist genocidal organization.
Are you asking me to put myself on a cross? If I say something, I'm sure that I will be arrested for reasons of homeland security.
Okay, I'll put it to you this way. I'm a Jew. The head of Hezbollah has said that he hopes that we will gather in Israel so he doesn't have to hunt us down globally. For it or against it?
For it.
نكرره في كل عام الموت لأمريكا.
The chilling exchange between David Horowitz and the Muslim student at the University of California is not an aberration. It occurred during Israel Apartheid Week, a protest sponsored by the Muslim Students Association. Israel Apartheid Week is being held on campuses across the United States. It is designed to portray Israel as a killer of innocent children, as a state that occupies Palestine and oppresses its people, as a state that does not deserve to exist.
The truth of the matter is, your days are numbered. We will fight you. We will fight you until we are either martyred or until we are victorious. That's how we look at it.
MSA UCSD presents Justice. M. Palestine. Weak. 2.
Empowered. The.
Individual. 2.
Continue. The.
Resistance.
The Muslim Students Association is an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is also the creator of Hamas, the terrorist party that rules Gaza. The founder of Hamas has said, "There is no place for you Jews among us, and you have no future among the nations of the world. You are headed to annihilation." To annihilate the Jews, the armies of Hamas have fired thousands of rockets into unarmed Israeli towns. Together with Hezbollah, they have amassed tens of thousands of rockets on Israel's northern and southern borders. The weapons are supplied by Syria and Iran. The Iranian dictator has threatened to wipe Israel and America off the face of the earth. In America, the allies of Hezbollah and Hamas have organized a national campaign against the Jewish state. The campaign is designed to isolate and demonize Israel. A parallel campaign has been organized to boycott Israel's goods. The goal of these campaigns is to weaken Israel and soften it up for the kill.
Purge your religious or your political circle from any effects of Zionism, and the world will be a better place for all of us.
Both these campaigns have been launched from American college campuses.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
To advance their goal of destroying the Jewish state, the Muslim Students Association has created a wall of lies. The wall is supposed to symbolize Israeli apartheid, although Israel is the most tolerant and inclusive society in the Middle East. This map appeared on the Apartheid Wall. It was erected on Library Walk in the center of the University of California, San Diego campus. It was built with $8,000 in funds provided by the student government. The first panel purports to represent the state of Palestine in 1946. This is a lie. There was no such state in 1946, or ever. The area on this map, which is falsely labeled Palestine, was actually only 1/5 of the area called the Palestine Mandate. It had been part of the Turkish Empire for 400 years, before the Turks were defeated in World War I. The British victors administered the mandate and promised it to the Jews. The Turks are not Arabs. There never was an Arab state or country called Palestine. But in 1922, the British reneged on their promise. They set aside 80% of the mandate to create the state of Jordan. The map on the Apartheid Wall shows only the remaining 1/5, most of which was an arid desert. The name Palestine is not Arabic. It is a Roman name for the region around the Jordan River. It means Philistine. The Philistines were not Arabs.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
The allies of Hamas on American college campuses chant, "From the river to the sea." What they mean is the obliteration of the Jewish state from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea.
Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea.
ومشروعنا النهائي فلسطين، كل فلسطين كان اعترف للعدو الإسرائيلي.
Jordan occupies 4/5 of the original Palestine Mandate. It is ruled by a Hashemite minority. But there is no movement in the Middle East or on American campuses to liberate the Palestinian Arabs of Jordan from Hashemite rule. There is only the movement to push the Jews into the sea. The second map on the Apartheid Wall shows the UN partition plan. This plan divided the remaining portion of the original mandate equally between the Arabs and the Jews. But the Arab states rejected the UN's offer. They did not want a state on the West Bank of the Jordan and in Gaza. They did not want a Palestinian state. They wanted to push the Jews into the sea.
ما اصلا ملیتی به نام ملیت اسرائیلی نمیشناسیم، فقط و فقط ملیت فلسطینی.
These are the precise words of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna. In 1948, he said this: "If the Jewish state becomes a fact, the Arabs will drive the Jews who live in their midst into the sea." Hassan al-Banna was a supporter of Hitler. The Muslim Brotherhood translated Mein Kampf into Arabic in the 1930s. The Brotherhood is the creator of both Hamas and the Muslim Students Association, which are leaders of the campaign to destroy the Jewish state. The war against the Jews has continued for 60 years. It began as an Arab war. It is now a Muslim war. The Hamas Charter says Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it has obliterated others before it. Imam Yosef al-Qaradawi, the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, said this: "Throughout history, Allah has imposed upon the Jews people who would punish them for their corruption. The last punishment was carried out by Hitler. By means of all the things he did to them, even though they exaggerated this issue, he managed to put them in their place. This was divine punishment for them. Allah willing, the next time will be at the hands of the believers." In other words, Islam will finish the job that Hitler started.
Free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Israel, Israel, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
What is going on here is a globally organized, throughout the Muslim world, plan to finish the job that Hitler started. And unlike the Nazis, who hid their final solution, the Muslim radicals shouted from the rooftops.
To combat this evil, the David Horowitz Freedom Center has launched a campaign on American college campuses. Its purpose is to confront the Israel Apartheid Weeks and the hate groups behind it. The center has created a Palestinian Wall of Lies to refute the blatant falsehoods of Israel Apartheid Week and to expose the genocidal agendas of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and of the Muslim Students Association. The hour is late, and we need your help.
Meet Corporal Eleanor Joseph. She recently became Israel's first female Arab-Israeli paratrooper. Corporal Joseph was born in Haifa. She remembers when Hezbollah terrorists fired Katyusha rockets into her mostly Arab neighborhood. Eleanor said, "If someone tells me that the IDF is just killing Arabs, I remind them that Arabs are killing Arabs."
שלום. היי. רבת אלינור ג'וזף, ערבייה, נוצרייה, מאיפה?
מחיפה.
ולוחמת.
נכון.
קרבית. איפה?
בקרקל.
את בכלל מתנדבת כמובן.
נכון.
מה הביא אותך להתגייס למרות שאני מניח שבשכונה שלך, זאת שכונה ערבית בחיפה?
כן.
כולם סביבך ערבים?
כן, למרות שחיפה ידועה בדו-קיום.
ואף אחד לא מתגייס בסביבה שלך? מהבנות בטח לא.
לא.
אז מה הביא אותך?
אבא שלי, הוא גם היה כאילו לוחם בצנחנים.
But how can it be? An Arab woman serving in Israel's armed forces? Isn't Israel an apartheid state? Did you know that there have been Arab members of Israel's parliament since the very first election in the 1940s? Since then, 63 different Arab Israelis have served in the Knesset. Some have even held the post of deputy speaker of the Knesset.
Born into an influential family in Nazareth, Haneen is used to making history. She was the very first woman ever to represent an Arab party in the Israeli parliament.
In 2010, the first Arab woman elected to the Knesset was actually on board the Turkish flotilla that tried to break Israel's naval blockade of Gaza.
I feel I am responsible to carry this message.
In Israel, all Arab citizens have the right to vote. Arab women have more rights in Israel than in most Muslim countries. They are free to dress as they like, attend school and universities, serve in the military, run for political office, and yes, even speak out against the government they serve in. But how can it be? Isn't Israel an apartheid state? 4 years ago, refugees began arriving in Israel from war-torn Sudan. While most of the world turned their back on the genocide in Darfur, with Hamas and Hezbollah leaders even praising Sudan's president, tiny Israel has allowed nearly 25,000 African refugees to seek asylum within their borders. Most of those fleeing the Muslim massacres in Sudan went first to their Muslim neighbors in Egypt. But there, they faced racism and more massacres. So despite the threat of death or arrest, thousands fled Egypt and came to the border with Israel, where they finally found a safe refuge. Even though it is a strain on the economy, it is the heart of the Jewish people to help the needy, the lost, and the hurting. As survivors of genocide, Israel empathizes in a way other nations can't. So the Israeli government has allowed the Africans in and has asked various organizations to assist the refugees. Charities across Israel, like the Carmel Shelter, are happy to help.
They told the immigration police about us in 2006 because at that time there were the very first Sudanese family came. Now there's thousands. Anyone who is lived in this land knows the legacy of the Holocaust. We can't turn our backs on people who suffer genocide, like the people of Darfur, who are suffering at the hands of radical Islam. We have to open our doors.
But how can it be? Muslims and African refugees living freely in Israel? Isn't Israel an apartheid state?
I am Palestinian. I didn't have the right to go to work as the Lebanese. This camp is like a prison for me and for my family. In this camp, there is no life.
I feel tired. I think about what will happen if my health gets worse. If she had Lebanese citizenship, she would be covered and only have to pay a small fee. But the problem is she has no citizenship to qualify for the Ministry of Health, so she needs an organization to help her, humanitarian or Palestinian, I don't know. Urgently, go to the hospital urgently.
Palestinian refugees in Lebanon are barred from 74 professions, which effectively bars them from working.
We don't have any dreams anymore.
We don't have the right of work, the right of education, civil, social security, access to the health care, nothing in Lebanon. That's why we are very impoverished.
The only thing that unites all the Lebanese parties and factions is the desire to prevent Palestinian refugees from obtaining their civilian rights.
We don't have any rights in this country.
We are deprived from all the human rights by the Lebanese government. The children, since they're born, they realize that they are different. They are discriminated and they are neglected. They are margined. They are refused by the surrounding community. They are refused by the state where you are living.
Lebanon is not the only Arab country that is discriminating Palestinians. We're talking about apartheid because it's official. The discrimination is official.
How can this be? We've been like this for more than 60 years.
Only one group is perpetuated as refugees.
I'm hoping for my children. I don't want my children to live how I live.
In the Arab world, you will find apartheid, but not one demonstration against the Arab countries. All of the protests against only one state on earth.
Israel is an apartheid state.
Israel is actually operating as an apartheid.
In some cases, parents send their children to the heart of the demonstrations. Notice the child is shoved by his older brothers and parents into the soldier's face. He is used by the protesters as a last resort to taunt the soldiers to become violent.
Jafar is a Palestinian baby from Gaza, was born with a bad heart. When he was only 3 days old, he was transferred to the Wolfson Medical Center in Israel with the help of the Save a Child's Heart organization to undergo life-saving surgery that would save his life. He is now recuperating and waiting to go back home.
أنا فقير في المساعدة في المنظمة أنا قاعدة هنا عرب ويهودي
يعني مش مهم حسب رأيك إنه
كلهم زين وكلهم بحبه.
A special Israeli project has given a second chance to 2 Iraqi children who had weeks or at best months to live.
סיפור על ילדה בת 5 מרמאללה שכמעט נהרגה מאבן שיידו לעברה פלסטינאים, ומי שהציל לבסוף את חייה היה דווקא מג"ד טנקים ישראלי.
I have a daughter just like you, 5 years old.
An Israeli clinic is saving thousands of lives of youngsters from many neighboring countries, even those Israel has tense relationships with.
Without the operation in this hospital, my son would have died.
But for the Israeli doctors that treat these Arab children, the decision is simple.
I'm doing what I think is right to do. I'm treating kids that need treatment.
2,500 children have been brought here, sponsored and treated. Half of them come from Gaza.
Not only is Saidi eternally grateful to the Israeli doctors that saved her daughter's life, she's now brave enough to tell her neighbors back home.
I will tell everyone we were in Israel and how they saved my daughter's life.
First grade students at the Hand-in-Hand Bilingual School in Jerusalem, Israel, learn an additional language, Hebrew or Arabic. Each class has 2 teachers, one for Hebrew and the other for Arabic, to provide maximum accessibility to the students and to give them the feeling that there is always someone around who understands them.
I love everyone in my class and the school. It's like really real family.
We meet a lot after school. We do homework together. We sit next to each other in class. We became family.
Man, the Talmud tells us, is a tree of life. But unlike a tree, his roots are planted in the heavens, taking nourishment there for his soul. When a person is in mourning, the Jewish faith suggests the planting of trees in homage to the departed. The tree, symbol of hope and eternity, takes the terrestrial place of the deceased and becomes a means of prolonging his life. Respecting this tradition, although she was not Jewish herself, a little girl named Rim planted a tree in memory of someone dear to her. His name was Yuval. Yet Rim and Yuval never met. But nevertheless, Rim owes him her life. Today, Yuval's heart is beating inside her. Rim is not in fact a child like any other. She has always lived in the Arab quarter of the town of Ramleh. But unlike the other children of her village, she has never been able to lead a normal life. The reason, a congenital malformation of the heart, which had condemned her to an early death. Since birth, she has spent more time in hospital rooms than on the playground.
When my daughter was 5 months old, she started having problems due to a heart murmur, so I took her to the hospital. And they told me it was extremely serious and that the only way to save her was through a heart transplant. So we waited for a donor. We waited 3 years, but there was still no donor.
While Rim was fighting against death each day, close by, little Yuval was leading a full and happy life with his parents and his brother. He smiled at the world, and the world smiled back at him. But one day, life became unjust, putting him in the way of a fast-moving car, tearing Yuval from his family his friends, and from life itself. Yuval was 9.
After the operation, I wanted to know who the donor was. I wanted to tell his family how grateful I was. So they told me that the donor was a child who belonged to a family in Herzliya. They asked me, do you want to go to Herzliya and see them? I said, of course I do. Then I immediately went to their home. What they were going through was very, very difficult. And I was so sad to see them in such pain.
It was on Sunday, just before Yuval's burial. They phoned us to ask if we were willing to meet little Rim's mother. Of course we agreed. And then she came over.
אבל אני מודה לך. הילדה בסדר. בסדר, אני מודה לך, אבל אני באמת, אני מרגישה מה שיש לה. את יודעת איזה לב היא קיבלה? אני יודעת. היא קיבלה לב של מלאך. את לא יודעת איזה לב היה לילד הזה. אני נורא רוצה לפגוש אותה גם. אני רוצה שנהיה בקשר. אני רוצה שהבן הגדול גם יכיר אותה, זה מאוד חשוב. בשבילו שהוא יכיר את זה. בסדר, באמת, אני אביא אותה ותראי אותה. אוקיי, אני מאוד מבקשת.
When we see him playing and running and having fun, just simply living, it's, well, despite all our pain, we also feel a certain joy, as if our son's death hadn't been in vain. I mean, not completely in vain, because in his death there is also life. Because if we hadn't given Yuval's heart to Rim, her condition was so desperate that she simply would have died. And thanks to Yuval, she has a new life. This comforts us and somehow it makes us happy.
To boycott Israel. You have chosen wisely. Boycotting the Jewish nation is a great way to show your lack of support, and the only way to put a stop to their use of such underhanded methods as walls, checkpoints, and diplomacy to secure their borders. Of course, if you're going to boycott, you'll need to do it properly. Far too many have failed because they aren't enforced, they're declared illegal or inhumane, or because many Arab nations can't go into Intifada without drinking Coca-Cola. But more often than not, they're simply not comprehensive enough. Past boycotts have only attacked companies. Sure, any company based in or doing business in Israel should be divested from, but there's more than that. The percentage of Israelis with PhDs is higher than in any other country, and these members of the Jewish intelligentsia produce more scientific publications per capita than any other nation, glutting the world with their scientific discoveries and inventions and propaganda. A truly effective boycott must attack these products as well. The following is a short list of do's and don'ts that will help ensure your day-to-day activities do not funnel money into the Israeli war machine. When buying a computer, be sure to buy one that does not have an Intel microchip or microprocessor, as these were invented in Israel. This includes all laptops made in the 20th century. Do not use a computer running the Windows NP, XP, or Vista operating systems developed by Microsoft Israel. Likewise, do not use the latest version of Microsoft Office. Once you've set up your Xeon-free computer, be sure to disable all firewalls and virus protection software, which the IDF invented to stop freedom-fighting hackers. Do not use cell phones. These were invented in Israel, and with every call you make, the Jewish nation gets wealthier. If you absolutely must use cell phones, do not use the camera phone function, as the camera chip is also an Israeli invention. Likewise, do not use voicemail. Do not use AIM, ICQ, or any other instant messenger system, as 4 young Israelis invented them in 1996. Do not use Google, which runs on an Israeli-made search algorithm. Do not play Mastermind. If you're a farmer, do not use water-saving drip irrigation on your fields. Although water may be scarce in some areas, this technology was developed in Israel, and surely you can spare some water to bring down Zionism. Do not drive or support hybrid or electric cars, as Israel has invested millions into green technology, and is even considering installing an electric car grid over the entire nation. As an added bonus to driving inefficient vehicles, much of the extra money you'll be spending on gasoline will go to fund freedom fighters like Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda. Do not live in areas that get their electricity from solar power plants, as many of them were invented or even installed by Israelis. If you live in the Mojave Desert area of Southern California, you may want to consider moving. If you live in Turkey, do not eat fish, as Israeli-made UV filters have been used to decontaminate fish farms and ensure your meals are bacteria-free. If you live in a country afflicted by the 2006 Indian Ocean tsunami, you may have received free tsunami detectors from Israel. Contact your local government representative and ask that these devices be shut down and returned. If you are involved in street gangs, organized crime, or freedom-fighting groups yourself, do not use Uzis or Desert Eagles. There are plenty of American-made weapons easily available to aid in your elimination of the Jewish state and its inhabitants. However, note that the United States military receives much of its ammunition from Israeli manufacturers. Therefore, do not serve in the United States military. Don't let politically correct liberals fool you. The stereotype of the greedy and talented Jewish doctor is tried and true. Here are some ways to ensure that Israeli medicine men don't profit from healing your sickness. When receiving medication while hospitalized, make sure the doctor writes the prescription by hand on paper, and that no computers are used to ensure proper administration of drugs. This system was designed by Israel, and the lives it saves are thus responsible for the suffering of hundreds of healthy Palestinians. Doctors, do not use Givun imaging swallowable camera pill to assist in getting gastrointestinal diseases diagnosed. Patients, do not swallow such a pill. Do not install baby sense monitors to prevent sudden infant death syndrome. Do not use the clear light method to treat acne. Soap and water will do just fine. Do not use the drug Copaxone to fight multiple sclerosis. Soap and water will do just fine. Women, please insist on using methods that require radiation for diagnosing breast cancer, as the fully computerized radiation-free alternative is an Israeli device. Doctors, do not inform your patients of the existence of this alternative. Do not donate money or blood at drives organized by a branch of the International Committee of the Red Cross. In 2006, they accepted Israel and Magen David Adom into their organization, despite the valiant efforts of the Red Crescent to prevent this over the years. If you develop a heart problem, insist that your medical practitioner not install cardiac stents to keep your blood flowing, or use a new device that helps the heart pump blood, or any other treatments, as many have been developed by Israelis. In fact, it may be preferable to eat right, exercise, and avoid smoking to ensure your heart will stay healthy, and to ensure no Jews get a chance to profit from saving your life. If your children have heart conditions, and you cannot afford surgery to save them, do not let Israeli charitable organizations like Shevet Achim or Save a Child's Heart provide them with free medical treatment. Though they will fly your child to Israel and have cardiologists operate on him or her there, and though they offer this service to all children, including those in Arab nations and Palestine, you must be stronger. This is how they install Zionist propaganda in your hearts and mind that depict Israelis as humanitarian and caring, which you know is not true. Do buy conflict diamonds. Israel was the first nation to adopt the Kimberley process to ensure diamonds do not come from conflict regions. By buying blood diamonds, you are making a political statement against the actions of the Israeli government, as well as a fashion statement of looking stylish. Lastly, if you are a survivor of Hurricane Katrina, floods in Romania, the Southeast Asian tsunami, the war in Kosovo, famine in Ethiopia, and the earthquakes in Turkey, India, and El Salvador, or if you live in Sri Lanka or the Palestinian territories, you may be alive due to humanitarian aid from the Israeli government paid for by taxes on Israeli citizens or from the actions of Israeli charities like Brotherly Covenant, Latet, or Israel Aid.